in Numbers last week? Where did we leave off in Numbers last week? Quail.
They're all getting sick with many quail.
And I'm very impressed you guys are here. I figured you got sick and you would spend the whole week vomiting and because of what quail can do to you. But either you refused to eat it that night because of your fear that this may occur, or you ate it and there was no problem with it. Of course, Roosevelt's not with us tonight. A couple others are here tonight. I'm here too. For those who didn't eat, I ate the rest of it. So. And so it happened at Kirbath Havidah. That's what Moses named the location. And what does that mean? No. Graves of lust. Graves of lust. Remember, at this location, we had the people, the children of Israel, remember what happened, what they had in Egypt, all the wonderful things they got to eat, and they asked to have some flesh, some meat, and Moses asked God for that, and God provided, even though that's not what even though that's not what the people needed, and He gave it to them anyway. So be careful what you ask for. Be careful what you ask for. God may decide to give it to you, and you will suffer from it. Probably a quarter of the people may have died there, but large numbers died because of the sickness caused by this quail. We talked about the curious nature of the migration and then poisonous when they're poisonous, when they're not poisonous last week. Psalms talks about this. David brings this up in Psalm 78, and I'm just going to read through this real quick. Psalm 78, starting verse 17. And they sinned yet more against him by provoking the Most High in the wilderness. And they tempted God in their heart by asking meat for their lust. Yea, they spake against God. They said, can God furnish a table in the wilderness? Behold, He smote the rocks that the waters gushed out and the streams overflowed. Can He give bread also? Can He provide flesh for His people? Therefore the Lord heard this and was wroth. So a fire was kindled against Jacob, and anger also came up against Israel, because they believed not in God and trusted not in His salvation. Though He had commanded the clouds from above and opened the doors of heaven, and had rained down manna upon them to eat, and had given them the corn of heaven. Man did eat angels' food. He sent the meat to the full. So we're talking about manna here, referring to manna. You know, they had ample provision, but the manna was provided every day. Verse 26, He caused an east wind to blow in the heaven, and by His power He brought in the south wind. He rained flesh also upon them as dust, and feathered fowls like as the sand of the sea, and He let it fall in the midst of their camp, round about their habitation. So they did eat and were well filled, and He gave them their own desire. They were not estranged from their lust, but while their meat was yet in their mouths, the wrath of God came upon them, and slew the fattest of them, and smote down the chosen men of Israel. For all this they sinned still, and believed not of His wondrous works. Therefore their days did He consume in vanity, and their years in trouble. When He slew them, then they sought Him, and they returned and inquired early after God, and they remembered that God was their rock, and the high God their Redeemer. Nevertheless they did flatter Him with their mouth, and they lied unto Him with their tongues, for their heart was not right with Him, neither was there steadfast in His covenant. But He, being full of compassion, forgave their iniquity and destroyed them not. Yea, many a time turned He His anger away, and did not stir up all His wrath. For He remembered that they were but flesh, a wind that passeth away, and cometh not again. How oft did they provoke Him in the wilderness, and grieve Him in the desert? So David's detailed description of what occurred here. Psalms 106, verse 13. They soon forgot His works. They waited not for His counsel, but lusted exceedingly in the wilderness, and tempted God in the desert. And He gave them their request, but sent leanness in their soul. Do we believe that God can give us anything we ask of Him? Is it always right to ask for anything we want?
As long as it's His will.
Right, right. So if we're spending time with God, if we're in God's Word all the time, right? Our will is becoming His will, isn't it? Right? And if it's His will, He definitely wants it to happen. But if we're like here, they had to go outside of the camp to get the quail. if you're leaving outside, if you're deviating from God's word and now you're going after your own lusts and desires, that's not something a part of God's will, is it?
It's a permissive will.
And so here he did die here. And said, well, if you want it, you're going to get sick from it. James 4:3, ye ask and receive not because ye ask amiss, that ye may consume it upon your lusts. Maybe if God's not answering your prayer request, maybe it's not right. Maybe it's not according to God's will. But be careful. God may decide to say, well, if you want it, I'll give it to you. And that's not what you want either, is it? Lauren Alfarel was talking about faith, and she mentioned that most of us believe that God can do something. We have faith that God can do something, but she took it that next step and says, well, do you believe in faith that God will do this? God will do this. So that was something, the next step of faith we need to take, right? God will do this. I know God can provide, but do I know that God will provide?
Amen.
And so here we are at Kibroth Habitat, and now we're going to move on to our next location. So now we're on our handout number 12. So we're only about a week into our journey from Mount Sinai, right? We've already discovered that in the first stop that there was grumbling, and so God sent fire burning, and Moses had to pray to stop the burning. And then we come to the next stop, and here they're questioning they wanted meat, and so they're complaining again. And actually, we're more like 40 days into it because we assume they were here 30 days based on the verse that the quail was there for 30 days. So we're probably 40 days into our journey at this moment. So already 2 stops, 2 complaints. Moses got frustrated, said, I don't want to be here anymore. If you love me, God, just kill me. And so we talked about Moses' frustration. We talked about how Moses is a real person like the rest of us. And so now, in order, God answered his prayer. God did not answer his prayer, but God answered his prayer, providing him 70 elders to stand by him and carry the burden with him. And so we have that occurred here. So now we're going to move on, and Moses' troubles is still not over. Moses is never out of trouble, is he? So number 1, Moses' authority is questioned. Moses' authority is questioned. Moses' authority question. And if anybody here is an authority, or if you're a parent at all, you know every day there's some new issue to deal with. It doesn't stop, right? Something's always coming at you. And so here we have Moses, who's leading 2.5 million people. There's always something coming at him, and it's coming from all directions. And here's a whole new direction. So A, the Israelites are going to move to Hazeroth. Next location, I just assume it's about 16 miles north of that location, so that's just a guess. So Hazeroth. Numbers chapter 11, verse 35, and the people journeyed from Kibroth Hattaavah unto Hazeroth and abode at Hazeroth. Numbers 33:17, and they departed from Kibroth Hattaavah and they camped at Hazeroth. Hazeroth means villages, or it also means encampments where, say, you have folds or like animals or something like that, but it's like villages. So these circles here, I think they're probably crops. I assume, well, maybe that would fit. So villages. So Numbers chapter 12, verse 1. And Miriam and Aaron spake unto Moses because of the Ethiopian woman whom he had married. And he had married an Ethiopian woman. And they said, hath the Lord indeed spoken only by Moses? Hath he not spoken also by us? And the Lord heard it. So Miriam and Aaron questioned Moses about the Ethiopian woman he had married. Miriam and Aaron questioned Moses about the Ethiopian woman he had married. That's really not the issue, is it? And we'll talk about the Ethiopian one, but that's really not the issue. What is the issue?
She's not an Israelite.
Well, that's a side issue. But what's the real issue? What is Miriam and Aaron really having an issue with?
What did they call her? But she's black.
They're just questioning
Little
his-
brother.
Authority. God can speak to us as well. But let's put this in perspective. All right, say you're the general, right? And you have your captains under you, and you're marching through, and you go from one battle that has failed, and you go to another battle that has failed, right? What do you do as a captain thinking? Maybe you're not the right person for this job, right? Maybe God is not on your side. You start questioning. We've just lost people by fire here. We've just lost people by quail here. You're not batting anything. We're not even getting here. We haven't even left Mount Sinai. We're only 40 days in from Mount Sinai. And look how many people, dead bodies we've left in the dust. What kind of leader are you, Moses? There must be something. There must be something. We need to start looking back in the records, see where did you fail God? And why is God angry? Because it has to be with you. Now, we all know with sports teams, football team, baseball team, whatever, right? Say your team is lost several games in a row. Who's the first one to be questioned? The coach. The coach. All honesty, is the coach really most of the time at fault? No, not really, no.
But the coach was at the Super Bowl. The coach was at fault.
So the first one out of there, the first one their head off cut off is the coach. You know, we're with the coach. We need to get another coach in here. And so here the same, just to put it in perspective, the same thing's happening here with Moses. We haven't got very far. We've lost all these dead bodies. There's all this grumbling. Nothing's going right. It's time to get some new leadership in here. And who would be most likely be that leader? Aaron and Miriam. Who are Aaron and Miriam, by the way? Brother and sister, right? Brother and sister. So they're the closest to Moses, and they're in leadership positions. And so maybe they're hearing grumblings from below, saying, "Why didn't you talk to your brother about this? I mean, something's wrong with him. God's not with him or something. Because look at all that's going on." Maybe that's grumblings coming up, and now they're the spokesperson for that grumbling. Some sort of Satan has put some sort of seed in their mind, questioning his authority, right? And so this is what it's about: questioning the authority. Micah chapter 6, verse 4. "For I brought thee up out of the land of Egypt and redeemed thee out of the house of servants, and I sent before thee Moses, Aaron, and Miriam." So I'm pointing out that verse, pointing out those three are in top leadership positions. I sent Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. All right, how much older are the siblings? What are the ages of the siblings? Yes.
Aaron's 3 years older than Moses.
Aaron's 3 years older than Moses. And where'd you find that?
In the Bible.
Oh, Exodus 7:7.
Exodus 7:7. And Moses was fourscore years old, and Aaron was fourscore and 3 years old when they spake unto Aaron. So we know Aaron is 3 years older. We know Moses was 80 years old when they departed Egypt. And so now we are a year transpired. So he's 81. So Moses is 84, 85. And so they're getting up there in age, aren't they? How about Miriam? How old is she?
What, my take on it?
Your take? We don't want your personal opinion. We want your scripture.
But no, it doesn't say in there exactly how old she is.
No,
I'm not how much older.
it does.
Okay, thank you. But she has to be the oldest
Yeah, she was the oldest.
because of the fact that when Moses was born, mother sent her to the river to watch after baby Moses, and she surely wouldn't have sent Aaron, who was only probably 3 at the time.
Might have been 10
So
years old.
she would have to be between older than that.
All right, Jewish tradition says she was 6 to 7 years old. 6 to 7 years old. So we get that from tradition. We don't have that in scripture. Chris is using some logic to determine that she must be of age to take care of a child. So that's good. So tradition says, Jewish tradition says 6 to 7 years old. So she's the oldest.
6 or 7 years old.
Older.
Older.
So that would put her, what, 88, 89 years old? So they're questioning, some sort of seed has gotten planted in their mind that there must be something with Moses that is causing God's wrath on the people. Could it be that he married an Ethiopian woman? What do you think about that? An Ethiopian woman. Who did he marry? Who did Moses marry?
Well,
Huh?
well, Zipporah.
Zipporah.
Is that what it
Exodus
is?
2:16. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters. They came and drew water and filled the troughs to the water their father's flock. Verse 21. And Moses was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moses Zipporah, his daughter. By the way, Zipporah means female bird. It seems to be that maybe she was someone who was very flighty, running in and out. And look what came in. I brought a man in, to a female bird. So is Zipporah an Ethiopian?
She's dark skinned.
It also says she's a Cushite.
Yeah, what's a cushion?
Right, okay.
And her father was a priest of Midian.
Right, okay, good points.
I thought
All
she was
right.
a Midian, I think.
That's right. Okay, excellent points, excellent points. All right, so Ethiopian, at the time when Moses was there, Ethiopia did not exist. It was the kingdom of Cush. So the actual translation, the Septuagint translated the word for Cushite into Ethiopian. Ethiopia was at the time of the Septuagint, which was at the, 200 years before Christ was born. So it's translated.
In
So
Spanish, it says Cusita, which comes directly from the translation. But Cusita, if you look in the Spanish translation, means very dark-skinned person.
So Cushite. So there's a Cush. This woman they're referring to as a Cushite. Now, who is Cush?
It's part of the,
Mhm.
big part of the.
Cush was the oldest son of Ham, who was Noah's son, right? Cush is the oldest son of Ham, who is Noah's son.
So she was an Israelite.
No. Now, we just pointed out that Zipporah is a Midianite, right? Where did the Midianites come from?
Keturah.
What?
Keturah. Keturah was by
Keturah.
Abraham.
Oh, that's right.
Abraham's.
That's right.
Second one.
You're absolutely right. I gotta catch up on my notes. There it is. Yes, that's right. Midianites were descendants of Abraham through Abraham's second wife, Keturah.
Where is Keturah from?
Where's Keturah from?
Judah. Yeah.
No, she's not Jewish. She's from that area around where Abraham was. But a Midianite didn't come from Cush. A Midianite came from
So they're cousins.
no, they're not related. There's no way we can relate the Cushite to a Midianite.
Because if it's Abraham's child, where is Israel from?
You're right. All right, the Hebrews and the Midianites, they're related through Abraham. Through Abraham, so Sarah is one wife and Keturah is the second wife, right? And so they're related through Abraham. But the Cushites are not related through Abraham. You have to go all the way back to Noah to get them related. So they're totally separate. There's no way you can relate the Cushites and the Midianites together. And so there are several different theories that go along here that say, well, Zipporah must have been a dark-skinned lady, or Zipporah must have been a Cushite, but that can't be. She's a Midianite, and whatever, regardless of skin color, they're not related.
Moses didn't leave among his people. He married from wherever he runs.
Right. So we know he married Zipporah, who was a Midianite.
The wife in question now is Moses and sometimes in question.
Right. So where does this Ethiopian Cushite come from? Well, there's nothing in the Bible except this one verse that says Ethiopian, and Miriam is very, very poignant fact, right? If you married an Ethiopian woman, a woman that's Ethiopian, you married, right? Now we have to go back to Josephus. Josephus tells us this lengthy story. Josephus is a historian, right, that we all hold up in high regards. But he brings this story out describing Moses. And you have to put your mind back at the time when Moses lived in Egypt. He was, of the Pharaoh line, lived among the Pharaoh. And so this is where the story picks up. So I'm going to read you from Josephus. Moses, therefore, when he was born and brought up in the foregoing manner and came to the age of maturity, made his virtue manifest to the Egyptians and showed that he was born for their bringing them down and raising the Israelites. And the occasion he laid hold of this was this: the Ethiopians, who are next neighbors to the Egyptians, made an inroad into their country, which they seized upon and carried off the effects of the Egyptians, who are in their rage, fought against them and revenged the affronts they had received from them. But being overcome in battle, some of them were slain, and the rest ran in a shameful manner, and by that means saved themselves, whereupon the Ethiopians followed after them in pursuit, and thinking that it would be a mark of cowardice if they did not subdue all Egypt. They went on to subdue the rest with greater vehemence, and when they had tasted the sweets of the country, they never left off the prosecution of the war. And as the nearest parts had not courage enough at first to fight with them, they proceeded as far as Memphis and the sea itself, while not one of the cities was able to oppose them. The Egyptians, under this sad oppression, but betook themselves to their oracles and prophecies. Now, what's going on here? The Ethiopians have now attacked Egypt. They went north into Egypt, and they went virtually unopposed, all the way to Memphis, all the way to the Mediterranean Sea. They've invaded. So this huge invasion of the Ethiopians came in, or Cushites. So this is the kingdom of Cush, to be honest. The kingdom of Cush. Josephus is translating Ethiopian, but the kingdom of Cush comes into Egypt and pushing all the way through. And so now the Egyptians are not sure what to do. So the Egyptians, under the sad oppression, betook themselves to their oracles and prophecies. And when God had given them this counsel to make use of Moses the Hebrew and take his assistance, the king commanded his daughter to produce him. So now they've asked, and God said, use Moses. Put Moses as your general. And so they've asked the daughter, who was taking care of Moses, right, to let him be the general of the army. That he might be the general of their army, upon which, when she had made him swear he would do him no harm, she delivered him to the king, and supposed his assistance would be of great advantage to them. She withal reproached the priest, who, when they had before admonished the Egyptians to kill him, was not ashamed now to own their want of his help. So Moses, at their persuasion, both of Thermuthis and the king himself, cheerfully undertook the business. And the sacred scribes of both nations were glad, those of the Egyptians, that they should at once overcome their enemies by his valor, that by the same piece of management Moses would be slain, but those of the Hebrews, that they should escape from the Egyptians, because Moses was to be their general. But Moses prevented the enemies, and took and led his army before those enemies were apprised of his attacking them. For he did not march by the river, but by land, where he gave a wonderful demonstration of his sagacity, or I guess a strategy. For when the ground was difficult to be passed over because of the multiple of serpents, which it produces in vast numbers, and indeed in singular in some of those productions which other countries do not breed, and yet such as are worse than others in power and mischief, and unusual fierceness of sight, some of which ascend out of the ground unseen, and also fly in the air, and so come upon men at unawares, and do them a mischief. Moses invented a wonderful strategy to preserve the army safe and without harm, for he made baskets like unto arcs of sage, and filled them with ibises, birds, and carried them along with them, which animal is the greatest enemy to serpents imaginable, and for they fly from them when they come near them, and as they fly, they were caught and devoured by them, as if it were done by the harts. But the ibises are tame creatures, and only enemies of the serpentine kind. But above these ibises I say no more at present, since the Greeks themselves are not unacquainted with this sort of bird. As such, therefore, as Moses was come to the land which was the breeder of these serpents, he let loose the ibises, and by their means repelled the serpentine kind, and used them for his assistance before the army came upon the ground. When he had therefore proceeded thus on his journey, he came upon the Ethiopians before they expected him, and joining battle with them, he beat them, and deprived them of their hopes. they had of success against the Egyptians, and went on in overthrowing their cities, and indeed made a great slaughter of these Ethiopians. Now, when the Egyptian army had once tasted of this prosperous success by the means of Moses, they did not slacken their diligence insomuch that the Ethiopians were in danger of being reduced to slavery and all sorts of destruction, and at length they retired to Saba. So what's happening now? What's happening now? So Moses is now made general. He doesn't go along the Nile River Valley. He's coming out further over here. Apparently out there in the desert, there's snakes and serpents, all kinds of things. And no wonder no one's going out there. No wonder no one's expecting them to come from that direction. But he came to set up baskets with birds, and the birds were able to protect him and move his army through. And now they've come and push the Ethiopians all the way back to their own capital, which is Saba. And so here we're approaching Saba. Saba, which was a royal city of Ethiopia, which Cambyses afterwards named Meroe, after the name of his own sister. The place was to be besieged with very great difficulty, since it was both encompassed by the Nile quite round, and the other rivers, Astapus and Asperabus, made a very difficult thing for such as attempted to pass over them. For the city was situated in a retired place, and was inhabited after the manner of an island, being encompassed with a strong wall, and having the rivers to guard them from their enemies, and having great ramparts between the wall and the rivers, insomuch and that when the waters come to the greatest violence, they can never be drowned, which ramparts make it next to impossible for even such as are gotten over the rivers to take the city. So what does it even have to do with an Ethiopian life? While Moses was uneasy at the armies lying idle, for the enemies durst not come to battle, this accident happened. Therbis, if you like the way Josephus says this accident happened. Therbis was the daughter of the king of the Ethiopians. She happened to see Moses as he led the army near the walls, and fought with great courage, and admiring the stability of his undertakings, and believing him to be the author of the Egyptian success, when they had before despaired of recovering their liberty, and to be occasion of the great danger the Ethiopians were in, when they had before boasted of their great achievement, she fell deeply in love with him, and upon prevalency of that passion sent to him the most faithful of all servants to discourse with him about their marriage. He thereupon accepted the offer on condition she would procure the delivery of the city, gave her the assurance of an oath to take her to his wife, that when he had once taken possession of the city, he would not break his oath to her. No sooner was the agreement made, but it took effect immediately, and when Moses had cut off the Ethiopians, he gave thanks to God and consummated his marriage and led Egyptians back to their own land. So here we have this amazing story from Josephus. In fact, this is the largest external biblical work that Josephus gives. That's not recorded in the Bible, but is outside the Bible. And it's quite amazing. He records this marriage between an Ethiopian princess and Moses.
But now I don't think they're talking about Zipporah.
No, this is not Zipporah.
So is this before Zipporah?
This is before Zipporah. This is before he left. So remember, he left Egypt when he was 40 to go to Midian. He was a shepherd in Midian.
Right.
He returned back to Egypt when he was 80.
Right.
Right? And then now we're present time. So this would occur in his first 40 years.
Yeah, but she's still his wife. Why would they? It's like 40 years later they're condemning him.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. God must not be working with Moses. So they're having to dig through his archives to find what may have caused this. They're having to go all the way back to potentially this incident here.
No, could you have married also when you were traveling?
Because they married, that's another theory, that maybe Zipporah died and he married an Ethiopian lady en route. That's one theory. But here we have Josephus telling us the story.
But I think he has married the Ethiopian woman before he made Zipporah.
That's right. Absolutely right. And so when Moses went back so it must have been a marriage of joining, treaty,
Yeah, kind of contract.
a contract with joining the countries together. Don't slaughter all my people, let's join our countries together through marriage. And he married her and then went back home.
That's a movie. If I find it, yeah, absolutely.
Now, there's some who believe that children came from this marriage, and so that's why Queen Sheba, when Queen Sheba met Solomon, that's how that had that connection there.
If I found the movie, I'll do it, absolutely.
And so here's the city of Saba. Now it's called, the ancient city was renamed Meroe. And so here it still exists. There's like 200 pyramids in this area.
How long was this picture?
I don't know, within the time since color photography.
Before Christ, maybe? Yes.
Oh, these pyramids? Oh, they're probably there with Moses.
And they are still here till now?
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there's 200 pyramids in 3 groups for these ruins. They're also identified as the Nubian pyramids. So this fascinating story about Moses and being used as a general and marrying this Ethiopian princess. And then now here Miriam's bringing up the past. So what is God going to do? We know that God was angered. And so verse 3, Numbers chapter 12, verse 3. Now the man Moses was very meek above all the men which were upon the face of the earth. And the Lord spake suddenly unto Moses and unto Aaron and unto Miriam, Come out ye 3 unto the tabernacle of the congregation. And they 3 came out. And the Lord came down in the pillar of the cloud and stood in the door of the tabernacle and called Aaron and Miriam, and they both came forth. And he said, Hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I, the Lord, will make myself known unto him in a vision, and I will speak unto him in a dream. My servant Moses is not so, who is faithful in all mine house. With him will I speak mouth to mouth, even apparently, and not in dark speeches. And the similitude of the Lord shall be he behold. Wherefore then were ye not afraid to speak? Wherefore then were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? The anger of the Lord was kindled against them, and he departed. God's standing up for Moses, isn't he? God's pointing out Moses' character. What is Moses' character like?
His hobbies.
Faithful, meek.
He's meek. Number 1, he's meek. He's meek. What does that mean? What does that tell us about Moses? Describe that in more detail.
Gentle.
Gentle?
No, like Marion.
Submissive to the Lord's will.
Right.
Humble.
Humble, right? Yeah, he's the leader of 2.5 million people, and he's taken this abuse. He's not speaking up for himself. He's taking it, isn't he?
Well, in the beginning, he was slow to speak.
Yes.
He
He needed Aaron to be his spokesperson.
Right.
All right, so we find out he's meek. He's very meek above all the men upon the face of the earth.
Let's see, God defends Moses and rebukes what? And what?
Miriam and Aaron.
Oh.
Or Aaron and Miriam.
Well, we're like, when they're wanting the position of authority, he never wanted it.
Right. That's right. Number 2, what other characteristics we see? He's faithful. He's faithful. Who is faithful in all mine house. You can trust him. He's there. He's always doing what he should be doing. He's faithful. He's faithful. This is God speaking up for Moses. Wouldn't you like God to speak up for you? I don't have to defend. Well, look, his own character speaks for itself. This man is meek above all, and he's faithful above all. What are you guys talking about? Why are you bringing this up? This is not necessary.
I like what it said in there that God spoke to him face to face and
Yes.
to his friend.
Yes. Yes, we're going to get to that point.
Oh.
Apostle Paul compares Jesus to Moses in Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 3, verse 1. Wherefore, holy brethren, partakers of the heavenly calling, consider the apostle and high priest of our profession, Christ Jesus, who was faithful to him that appointed him, as also Moses was faithful in all his house. For this man was counted worthy of more glory than Moses, insomuch as he who hath built the house hath more honor than the house. For every house is built by some man, but he that built all things is God. And Moses verily was faithful in all his house, as a servant for a testimony of all those things which were to be spoken after. But Christ as a son over his own house, whose house are we, if we hold fast the confidence and the rejoicing of the hope firm unto the end. So, what an honor for Moses to be compared to Christ. And that's how much revered that the Jewish nation hold up Moses. And now to put Jesus above Moses. Chris pointed out God's special relationship. You have this relationship like he had with no other man except for Adam and Eve. Here he's speaking one-on-one with Moses, right? One-on-one with Moses. Exodus 33:11, and the Lord spake unto Moses face to face, as man speaketh unto his friend. And he turned again into the camp. We find that Moses spoke to, or God spoke with Moses like as a friend. As a friend. He didn't have that relationship with Miriam and Aaron, did he? He even points out, or with any of the other prophets throughout all Scripture. He's speaking to dreams, remember Joseph and Isaiah and visions. But here Moses has that one-on-one. One-on-one. What does God ask Aaron and Moses?
Aaron and Miriam.
Oh, Aaron, yes, right, thank you. Aaron and Miriam. What does God ask Aaron and Miriam?
Well, he said, why were they not afraid to speak against
What?
Moses?
Why weren't you afraid? Why didn't fear stop you? You know my relationship with Moses. Why would you now accuse Moses? Why would you now question his authority? You see, we are one and we're together. He's faithful. He's the most faithful man. He's the most unique man. And we have this relationship that you and I don't have. And yet you're not afraid to speak up against him. Why weren't you afraid? Why weren't you afraid? So we find out here Moses had connections. Moses had the best connections, didn't he? We all need those connections. We need God on our side.
It's God here.
That's right. This brings up a story that we refer back to with King Saul and David. We know David was anointed to be the next king of Israel, but King Saul was still king, right? King Saul got so jealous of David. David had killed Goliath. They sang the songs that Saul had killed his thousands and David had killed his 10,000s. And the people just worshipped David. And here King Saul is getting jealous. And so King Saul went out to kill David, and David's on the run. And so so a similar story, but not quite right. David is in the right. So we're going to see what Miriam should have done by David, right? But we can't compare King Saul with Moses. Moses is in the right. King Saul is in the wrong. And so just to see how this reacts. So we pick up our story in 1 Samuel 24, verse 2. Then Saul took 3,000 men chosen out of Israel and went to seek David and his men upon the rocks of the wild goats. And he came to the sheepcotes by the way where was a cave, and Saul went in to cover his feet. And David and his men remained in the sides of the cave. And the men of David said unto him, Behold, the day of which the Lord said unto thee, Behold, I will deliver thine enemy into thine hand, that thou mayest do to him as it shall seem good unto thee. Then David arose and cut off the skirt of Saul's robe privily. And it came to pass afterward that David's heart smote him, because he had cut off Saul's skirt. He said unto his men, The Lord forbid that I should do this thing unto my master. The Lord's anointed to stretch forth my hand against him, seeing he is the anointed of the Lord. So David is given this prime opportunity to take care of him. He knows he's the anointed. He already knows that he's the next one in line. But King Saul is the current king. And David, okay, I'll do something. I'll do it. I'll just cut off just a piece of his skirt. And that burdened his heart, and knew that was wrong, because he had touched the anointed. Moses is the anointed here, right? And Miriam is going against the anointed. That's wrong. You know, we need to be careful with our pastors.
So David
Leader.
was saying Saul was the anointed.
Saul is the current king, but David's the anointed successor. David was not going to remove Saul until God removed Saul. But we need to be very careful when we're dealing with pastors. They're the anointed. They're the anointed.
Perhaps not my anointed and do my prophet no harm.
And so I give you that warning. See what happens to Miriam. All right, so verse 10. Numbers chapter 12, verse 10. What's going to happen to Miriam? Leprosy. D is Miriam has leprosy. So Numbers chapter 12, verse 10. And the cloud departed off the tabernacle, and behold, Miriam became leprous, white as snow. And Aaron looked upon Miriam, and behold, she was leprous. And Aaron said unto Moses, Alas, my Lord, I beseech thee, lay not the sin upon us, wherein we have done foolishly, and wherein we have sinned.
Very humble all of a sudden.
Yes. Let her not be as one dead, of whom the flesh is half consumed when he cometh out of his mother's womb. And Moses cried unto the Lord, saying, Heal her now, O God, I beseech thee. So we find out God's punishment on Miriam was leprosy. She immediately became leprous.
Yeah, but why did he punish Aaron? Because he was.
It seems Miriam was the spokesperson, the leader, the one, and Aaron was kind of
Following big sister.
following big sister, yeah. Here, come on, Aaron. Let's go talk to our brother Moses about it. Now, who's the first one to notice the leprosy? Aaron. Now, Aaron, what position does he hold? He's the high priest. That's his job, right? Anybody who's leprous, anybody who has leprosy is a skin disease. And so anybody who has something needs to go before the priest or the high priest to get examined, like you would at a doctor. And so Aaron's the first one to notice it. So what does Aaron do? He pleads to Moses, right? He's the high priest, but he's going to Moses.
Yeah, but God just made it
Moses has it.
plain to him
Yeah, that's right.
that Moses was in charge.
And Moses has that connection. I'm not looking so good in God's eyes at the moment. Let's go to Moses. What should Moses' reaction? What could it have been?
She got what she deserved.
She got what she deserved.
Moses didn't do that.
But Moses is meek, right? We see Moses' meekness come out. So what does he do?
He cried out to God.
He cried out to God.
Cried to the Lord and saying, heal
Now, do you notice how short that prayer is? It's not long, is it? It was not no big explanation. Moses cried out, Heal her now, O God, I beseech thee. Heal her now, O God, I beseech thee. Very short prayer.
You know your friend closer to you when you need your help. You don't need like tell story.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
And you
That's right.
you hear that.
That's right.
Or it's somebody that you don't know will be the one that will go about and about.
Right.
Your friend, this is what I need, and you do it.
That's right. You get a call from one of those close friends, I need this. No questions asked. You drop everything you're doing and you go do it. Right? That's excellent. Excellent. Or if somebody comes to the door randomly, like, what? Who are you? What's your story? Why should I do this for you? I don't know who you are. No, absolutely right. We need to be that close to God. So Miriam is removed from the camp for how many days? 7 days. Verse 14, and the Lord said unto Moses, if her father had but spit in her face, should she not be ashamed 7 days? Let her be shut out of the camp 7 days, and after that let her be received in again. And Miriam was shut out of the camp 7 days, and the people journeyed not till Miriam was brought in again. God brings in the story about a daughter coming to a father and spitting in his face. And if a daughter does that, the daughter is removed out of the camp and removed from the father for 7 days. I don't find that law or that example anywhere in Scripture, so it must have been some sort of tradition. This is what's normally done. You remove somebody. But what does it mean to spit into somebody's face? What does that tell us? Rude, insulting, contemptuous, right?
But it says if her father has spit in her face.
You're right.
So if
You're
her
right.
father had spit in her face, would she
You're
have
right.
been disgraced for 7 days?
You're right, absolutely, yeah, I read that wrong. So she's ashamed because her father has now
Spit in her face.
spit in her face, yes. And so,
Okay,
mhm,
so that's a sign of disgrace.
so another disgrace. Jesus spoke about spitting in Matthew chapter 5, verse 22. But I say unto you that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of judgment. And whosoever shall say to his brother, Raca, shall be in danger of the council. But whosoever shall say, Thou fool, shall be in danger of hellfire. The word Raca is an unusual word, and some believe that it comes from the word that means spit upon, as if the person that used it thought the man he spoke to deserved to be spitted upon and treated in the most contemptuous manner. Others think it comes from words that mean empty and vain, to denote worthlessness, empty-headed, foolish, a man with no brains, something to that effect. So you can see how this applies for Miriam and Moses, saying, you're a fool, you don't know what you're doing, and she's basically spitting on his face, right? Contemptuous. Now, haven't we done that to Jesus? Matthew chapter 26, verse 67, then they did spit in his face and buffeted him, and others smote him with the palms of their hands. Jesus was spit on. Now, this removing for 7 days applies to the law of leprosy. And so that's fulfilled here. And we see that, we've discussed that in Leviticus 13. Leviticus 13:1, and the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron, saying, when a man shall have in the skin of his flesh a rising, a scab, a bright spot, and it be in the skin of his flesh like the plague of leprosy, then he shall be brought up unto Aaron the priest, and unto one of his sons the priest, and the priest shall look on the plague, and the skin of the flesh, and when the hair and the plague is turned white, and the plague is like be deeper than the skin of his flesh, it is a plague of leprosy, and the priest shall look on him and pronounce him unclean. If the bright spot be white in the skin of his flesh, and the sight be not deeper than the skin, and the hair thereof be not turned white, then the priest shall shut up him, and hath the plague 7 days. And so following here we have Aaron looked at Miriam, and you can be 7 days, but God's the one who declared 7 days. And so that fulfills this law here. In verse 5, and the priest shall look on him the 7th day, and behold, the plague is in the sight, be at stay, and the plague spread not in the skin. Then the priest shall shut him up 7 days more, and the priest shall look on him again the 7th day. Behold, the plague be somewhat dark, and the plague spread not in the skin, and the priest shall pronounce him clean. It is but a scab, and he shall wash his clothes, be clean. So we find here that Miriam was sent out of the camp for 7 days. She would then come back from camp after the 7 days over to be re-inspected and find that she is clean. Aaron would have pronounced her clean and allowed her back in the camp, and she would then have washed her clothes.
No, it says that they didn't travel for the 7 days she was shut out. Was that normal if anybody would have been shut out, or was that a special case for her?
Excellent question. Excellent question. I don't know if this is the first time that has occurred. I know we read before when we were sitting at Mount Sinai that they removed everybody who was unclean outside the camp. Now, you can still travel, you just have to stay outside of the marching orders, I presume. But no, that's an excellent question. One of the commentaries I read saying this may have been the first time that this occurred, and Aaron had to now pronounce her sister unclean as the first instance of this leprosy occurring. But that's just a commentary saying something. But yeah, I wondered that same question as well.
It seems like if it was mentioned, it must have been important.
Well, we've seen here that the series of chapters with Numbers is dealing specifically with Moses. Moses and his leadership being questioned and having to deal with one murmur after another, and him getting frustrated, and then so here he's gotten frustrated, and now he's coming in being attacked by his own sister. This is what he's dealing with.
No, but I mean, if it mentioned that they didn't travel, you would think that there was a reason why it would say that they didn't travel.
Because of Miriam in this instance. All right, verse 16. We're going to finish the chapter. And afterward, the people were moved from Hazeroth and pitched in the wilderness of Paran. And so now we're going to be moving again. So the 7 days have transpired. Miriam is back in the camp, and we're going to move again. And so we're going to pick up there next week. Questions? Yes?
Answer.
Yeah.
Haran. Haran, P-A-R-A-N.
P-A-R-A-N. P-A-R-A-N. Recognize who the anointed are and make sure you give them the authority that God has given them. It's very important. All right. Let's close in prayer. Dear Father, Lord, we thank you for today. We thank you for your blessings. We thank you for all that you've provided for us, Lord. And Lord, we thank you for leaders. Lord, may you protect them, Lord. Lord, we see through Moses how like leaders get frustrated and discouraged, Lord. And Lord, just may you protect them and guide them and give them the grace that they need, that they can lead, Lord. And Lord, we thank you for faithful and meek leaders that are willing to listen and be merciful, Lord. And Lord, we thank you for that. And Lord, just may you bless your people here in Jesus' name.